And so we're going to continue with the description at the top here of Silk, Talbot Silk, who is disliked by no one. He's described as cordial, amusing, and easy. He's like the opposite of Daniel Rook in many ways. He's light on his feet in conversation. He's a storyteller who can turn even an ordinary event into something entertaining. And so far, Silk is described as charming, and although he's only 2 years older than Rook, he's a first lieutenant, whereas Rook is a second lieutenant. And he is hoping to very soon become Captain Silk. So war is like an opportunity for him on the way to the creation of Captain Silk. So here it describes how Rook is able to invent an acceptable version of himself because Silk is a model. So he kind of copies and models himself on Silk, and Rook then learns to have conversation and even joke, exchange a banality or two. Then there's a description of Daniel Rook, not the new Daniel Rook, not unlike the old one. The old one is the new one is still a quiet fellow who likes to hang back in the shadows. So the new Rook liked to hang back in the shadows, but one night he forgot himself and accepted the challenge of multiplying 759 by 453 in his head. And he comments that back at the academy, that probably would have meant that he was bullied or opened him to mockery, but on board the Resolution it seemed remarkable. So they actually admired his talent. He was useful, in fact. And at dinner, he could laugh alongside everybody else. So you can see that there's a sense of camaraderie, belonging. He's able to join in on jokes, and he was just another lieutenant, enjoying himself. And they cheered and shouted to war and a sickly season. So that sense of unity he'd always hoped for, he's finally got it. It's chapter 2, so maybe not yet. All right, so the Resolution, it arrives at Boston, and then he discovers that he can actually help with navigation because of his work with the stars. He can also work because of his knowledge of longitude and latitude arithmetic. His talents are actually quite useful. And then they pull into Antigua, which is in the Jamaican Islands, which was mentioned earlier with Lancelot Percival James. And here, Silk plans a scheme where some red-blooded young British officers would be made welcome. To me, I think it could be possibly a whorehouse. That was the term they used at the time, not my term. But that's the way it's certainly described anyway. And so Rook joins in as part of his education, just as important, Silk says, as trigonometry or Greek. And here, quite mathematically, Rook describes the potential experiences, the opportunity to make certain discoveries. Anyway, then the bottom of page 24, you notice that Rook sees the black faces of slaves, and he sees a woman in the laundry. He hears a language nothing like he had ever heard before, not Latin, not Greek, not French. It's a language he describes as opaque, which to me indicates that he can't understand it. It's like opaque being not see-through. But he, at this point, this links to the end here of that page, but he basically says that if people can speak language, if these people that he's now seen, they're not as abstract as before, but if they have been they are not, once he's seen them, he realizes that they are not the same as a horse or a gold watch, like a product to be sold. And there is a description again of the unfair treatments of black women, men and women carrying cane or baskets. They're sweating. He notices they never look him in the face, something that he thinks they might be taught. But he describes their own features in admiring tones, exotic, powerful, and he compares them to the English faces, which he says are insipid putty. So once he's seen for himself this system, which a man can be bought and sold like a horse or a gold watch, he realizes that there is absolutely no logic in Lancelot Percival's arguments. And finally, this chapter concludes with Rook having an experience with a lady, his first sexual experience. The description: the woman he's given is large, handsome, brown-skinned, red lips, and she exclaims, "Bless you, boy, you're hung like a horse." A moment of humor, I guess, there. But there's a sense at the end here of his life having a shape, a purpose. That boy who would count his pebbles on the beach has found a life, has found a sense of belonging and identity.